good afternoon, and welcome to our SLP graduation session. Very excited to talk about two very dedicated individuals who have done some really great work over the last several months. We've still got some people joining us, so I'm excited to have you all here and celebrate our graduating SOP fellows. My name is Thomas Savage. I'm the Director of Learning, Innovation, and Design here at Creative Reaction Lab. I'm based in Columbus, Ohio, though originally from South Carolina. My background is in K-12 education. I used to be a classroom educator, uh, proudly a classroom educator before moving into more explicit community outreach work and organizational leadership. You wanted to talk to me about something outside of work, talk to me about music of the early 2000s or travel or what it is like to care for dog. As we get into today's section, and before we talk more about the fellowship, I want to definitely make sure we take a second to thank the sponsors of our program, Allstate Echoing Green, the Kres Foundation, McNulty Foundation, MetLife Foundation, and especially our Power Shifters. We'll talk a bit more about the Power Shifter program towards the end of today's session, but just know that these folks are specifically dialed into the Creative Reaction Lab network, and their generous donations and their sponsorship of our work explicitly speaks to the Seeds of Power Fellowship. As we are moving through today's session, just to do a bit of housekeeping, feel free to use the chat to share any celebratory remarks for our fellows or anyone else. Your participation is up to you and completely optional. There will be a Q&A towards the end. I believe there should be a, maybe not. There's not a Q&A box, I don't think. So feel free to enter any questions you have for our fellows into the chat as well, and I'll monitor that by the time we get to that part. Cameras are optional to have on if you are just a guest today. You may turn your camera on if you choose. If not, feel free to stay off camera and celebrate without having your face shown. And then also, if you would like to turn on transcription, you should have a button at the bottom of your screen or wherever your control panel is that says live transcript, and you can toggle subtitles on and off from there. So the reason we're here today is to talk about our Seeds of Power Fellowship and to celebrate that. If you are unfamiliar with that fellowship, it is a program where we're training youth to grow their skill set, expand their knowledge of equity-centered community design, which is a framework that was developed, trademarked by Creative Reaction Lab, under the leadership of Antoinette Carroll, who will be speaking momentarily more about the organization. Through this fellowship, the participants are identifying opportunities for change within their own communities and applying the framework to do so. And so they are looking for opportunities to develop an intervention or a new approach to building more equitable outcomes within their own communities. And so really excited to talk more about the program, to talk more about our fellows. But at this moment, I'm going to hand it over to Antoinette Carroll, who is our founder, CEO, and president.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I am currently in California, so it is still very early for me, but excited to be here to graduate two wonderful individuals. As Thomas stated, my name is Antoinette Curl, and I am the founder, president, and CEO of Creative Reaction Lab, pronouns she, her, hers. And I, have a lot of things that I usually talk about myself of being a serial social entrepreneur and being recognized by many different organizations such as Echoing Green or TED Fellow. But to be honest, today I just want to bring my family into the space. I'm a mother of twin boys that turned 16 in July, a granddaughter of a wonderful woman that at this moment is starting her transition from life. And so I just want to make sure I bring the folks in with me that kind of got me where I am today. And that also includes the staff of the organization. Creative Reaction Lab would not be here if it was not for this team. And we were lucky to have Amos and Ugochi as crucial team members with us since October. And with us celebrating our 10-year anniversary in August, it is an honor and a privilege to have been able to move along this journey with different team members side by side. So with that, I want to give you a little bit of overview of our organization as well as why we are here. So a little bit about Creative Reaction Lab. In 2014, we were founded in response to the uprising in Ferguson, particularly with me being a former Ferguson resident. But it was around December 2016 that we more intentionally decided that we would do deeper work with youth of color, particularly Black, Latinx, and in some communities, Indigenous youth, to really look at how do we educate, train, and challenge them to become leaders in designing healthy and racially equitable communities. And that's taken the form of them developing campaigns and projects and interventions around, racial rights, voter rights, reproductive rights, gun violence alleviation, food justice, environmental justice, et cetera. But understanding that for us to really have systemic change, we need to have young leaders at the forefront of it, and recognizing that for equity, it's not just about them being the leaders of tomorrow, but they actually can be the equity leaders of today. And we've had the privilege of working side by side with youth 26 and under for 10 years doing that work. But we also recognize that it's not just enough to have an organization that's around youth development through workforce development and civic engagement and art-based programs, but we also need to change the way that we are addressing systemic oppression. And we have done this with our young leaders, but we also recognize that it's important to have what we call design allies in that space, which has taken the form of adults, educators, organizations, et cetera, and really pushing us beyond how do we not just live in a state of the world where we're talking about equity through theory, but how do we move from awareness to action and really creating this mindset shift that if a young leader or even an organization has this deeper training and deeper opportunity of practice in the equity space, that they can start thinking about how do we design more equitable pay, or they walk into grocery stores and see inequities in the space and think about how do we problem solve around that. And so we have been at the forefront of with several organizations of building a new field of equity design and changing the way we address systemic oppression. We like to include this quote in a lot of our presentation because Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Really kind of centered the importance of the career of humanity, and how do we center social justice work, healing work into just the foundation of who we are and what we believe. And so I love using this quote in which she said, "Make a career of humanity, commit yourself to the noble struggle for equal rights. You will make a better person of yourself, a greater nation of your country, and a finer world to live in." And the young leaders that we've worked with really have started to do this. I would argue for some of us younger than we did. And also the different organizations we work with has also started to deepen this work as well. And I will personally say that this is something that guides me in making sure that this isn't just a job, but it's actually looking at a lifestyle of improvement and care for all. When I think about this goal, I talked about the tool or the framework of equity centered community design, which we'll show in a minute the slide of what it looks like through kind of action. Also, the young leaders that we work with, the organizations that we work with, but it's ultimately towards this goal of how do we get beyond just being social change agents? How do we get beyond just being change makers, but having a kind of greater degree of accountability, which we call Redesigner for Justice. And I'll explain what I mean by Redesigner for Justice in a minute, but it's this idea that all systems are by design and therefore they can be redesigned. And how do we actively, again, not just have a job, but really have this mindset shift and this lifestyle change where we are active redesigners that are centering justice and equity and liberation in all the work that we are doing. And for me, explicitly, it is around racial and health equity and the intersection of that world. But for others, it may be LGBTQIA plus rights and the intersection of environmental rights. For other individuals, it may be looking at maternal health and also gun violence alleviation and so on and so on. And there is no right or wrong. It is looking at what are those nodes of focus for each individual, because unfortunately there's plenty of wicked problems to go around. And when we try to solve everything for everyone, we ultimately end up solving nothing. So, how do we actually specialize and focus as we relate to our living expertise, as well as the proximity that we have in communities that are of a greater connection for us? So I talked about how all systems are by design, but I also mean any system produces what it was designed to produce. And when folks hear design, and earlier Thomas and I was actually in a convening in which they referenced us as a design firm, but they also use think tank. And the reality is that design is everything and everywhere, and sometimes it's hard to describe it. But we actually have defined design in a more larger approach. Some people think about object making and what are we wearing or what are we sitting in, but for us, design is kind of expanding on IBM's 1960s definition, which was the intent behind an outcome. And we expanded that to think about how design is the intent and impact behind an outcome. So it's not enough to just talk about the intention of what we're doing, but how do we hold ourselves accountable to the impact of what is actually being produced by our decisions and by our actions. And when you look at this definition, it is very clear that everything is by design, but that also means that we need to be clear on how we are making decisions that lead to these designs and not just kind of passively moving through life. We also want to define equity, and I have many different versions of this definition. The one that we use the most is when outcomes are not predictable based on someone's identity. It is a build out from Ford through Ferguson's definition of racial equity. So when you talk about gender equity, is when outcomes are not predictable based on someone's gender. When we talk about ability status equity, is when outcomes are not predictable based on someone's ability status or disability, and it is very much looking at it from a systemic level. That being said, I've started to use a more, I think, simpler way to describe this, which is to say equity is giving people what they need when they need it. And giving people what they need when they need it means that it is always changing. I think there's a mistake in the space where we talk about equity as if it is a checkbox occurrence or is the ultimate goal, whereas equity is an ongoing process. Because when you think about the needs that we have, what we needed a week ago is changing from what we may need 3 months from now or what we may need from 3 years from now and 30 years from now. The world continually evolves, our lives and context evolves, and so does the needs that we have as it relates to equity. And so when we think about it, it is complex, it is messy, it is hard, but it is a necessary requirement for us to actually get to this more liberated future that a lot of us are trying to work towards. So if we think about all things are by design, that does mean that our systems of oppression, inequality, advantages, and inequities are by design and they can be redesigned. And I want to name that advantages is a new addition that we've added to this conversation because, we do talk about a lot of, I guess, the negative outcomes of decision making, but there are advantages and privileges that have been designed as well. And some of it is through personal decisions, some of it is through generational transference, and also generational trauma and harm. And so all of that needs to be taken into account, and being mindful that we can actively do something about it. So at our organization, we created a framework called Equity Centered Community Design that has become the core of all of our programmatic work. Our Seeds of Power Fellows did learn this framework. We have a few assets and materials that we've open sourced throughout the years on our framework. And we even have more assets and materials being built out now to really scale this approach of problem solving. But when we think about equity centered community design, it is very much recognizing that no matter what issue you are addressing, we always first have to think about what is the role of history and healing and the role of acknowledging, dismantling, sharing, and shifting power constructs look like in every step of the process. In every space we're in, there are always power dynamics. There's power dynamics in this space. There's power dynamics in your chosen family or maybe your blood family. There's power dynamics in every room. And the same when it comes to history and the need for healing. And so we are very conscious that these are core foundations of any step of a problem solving process. But it even starts at the stage of how do you build your team by inviting diverse co-creators, to really looking at how do we build our humility by actually becoming, build our empathy by actually becoming more humility centered, to researching and really looking at how do we test and learn in our community without re-traumatizing through the lens of experimentation and testing, particularly as it relates to communities that have been targeted throughout history. But as you see through here, there is an element of that self-reflection embedded throughout, but there's also the need to do something about it and to act. And it has been a privilege to see our Seeds of Power Fellows currently look at how they not only can self-reflect and think about their own identities and what they want to focus on in their lives, in their careers, in their mindsets, but also them actively doing something about it. And so Thomas and the Seeds of Power Fellows, Ugochi and Amos, are going to share what they have been doing for the last few months to move into that space of action. And just want to say, since I'm about to leave from talking, just congratulations to the both of you. It's been an honor for you to join our organization, and we have grown and learned so much in partnership with you, and I'm very excited to see what you continue to do. And I'm looking forward to being that person when you're on stage, be like, I knew them one day. I used to know them. That's my plan. So with that, I'm gonna pass it back to Thomas. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Antoinette, for setting that very important context for why we're doing the work that we're doing and the role of the fellowship and the big picture of that. It takes a village. It takes really an army to go about the work of equity. It's work that does not stop. One of the more exciting things about Creative Reaction Lab is this idea of power shifting. And as you will see, as you listen to our fellows talk about their experience and what they've worked on, this wasn't from a place of lesser than. They were brought onto the team. They were in the trenches, for lack of a better term, with the rest of us to really achieve some amazing things in a relatively short period of time. So happy to take this time now to celebrate them. When I think back to their entire journey, there are so many things that were accomplished. They're going to talk more specifically about their individual projects, but I wanted to take a minute, really mostly for Ugochi and Amos, to kind of think back on some of the things that they did, that they worked on, that they may have even forgotten were a thing. I doubt it, because these are really intense, work heavy things. But everything from developing and publishing the Creative Reaction Lab community zine, this effort that started as an opportunity to engage alumni, that they really expanded and helped evolve to be a tool that helps to bring all aspects of our network together, even folks who are just kind of somewhat interested in what we're doing, developing such a rich, I should say, resource for them to really lean into the Creative Reaction Lab network. Artwork for Equity is one of our cornerstone programs, in which we are working with young or youth artists to really create purposeful artwork around a number of different topics, including the ones listed on the screen: environmental racism, gun violence, reproductive rights, also educational equity. And there is one that I am forgetting, but these artists come on, they are creating artwork for a purpose, and then we are tasked with helping to exhibit that artwork in different areas. Ugochi took the lead on really expanding that program into the Baltimore area, which was really exciting and really giving a new lens and perspective on what that could look like. Also working on animated videos, this idea of telling the story of why these topics matter and why a community should be engaged in them. Publishing articles about their experience on Medium and related topics. And then helping to relaunch our youth leadership program, which is going to be happening in Chicago this summer. But this was in collaboration with our Seeds of Power Fellows to relaunch a program that has not happened since before the pandemic. And so they have truly had their hands in everything that we have been doing. And that's really the power of this program, is that I hope that one of their takeaways is real ownership over not just the work that they completed, but the work that we will be able to continue to do due to their contributions in this time period. So yeah, really excited for you to hear less of me and more of them. And so at this time, I'm going to invite Amos to come on so that he can talk to you a bit more about himself, his experience, and then also the personal project that he worked on throughout the course of his fellowship.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm really excited to be in community with you all and really just reflect on my journey so far with Creative Reaction Lab. And so my pronouns are he, him. As you all know, I'm a Seeds of Power Fellow. I'm actually originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma, even though I rep Kansas City real big. But I'm currently based in Kansas City. A lot of my background has been in education and higher education institutions. So I've done a lot of things within higher education institutions in terms of programming and really trying to bring in and bring up youth voice as well as youth advocacy and leadership. So I'm really passionate about diversity, inclusion, equity, education, financial wellness, because I did used to do financial aid for students, and that was always a really fun time. Anything LGBTQ issues, student agency, and overall just really focusing on the upward mobility of our marginalized communities and how to better prepare them and equip them with those powerful tools. Awesome. So I use this picture because when we were having one of our wonderful group bonding moments over Zoom as a group, we talked about different things that are really important to us. At the end of the day, what's important to me is my community. And so these are pictures of my community, things I'm interested in, as well as I had to bring back my judgmental dog in the corner. But overall, just things that are motivations for me, especially to continue on with the work that I'm doing and also knowing why I'm doing the work. So I really chose the Seeds of Power Fellowship because I was inspired by the idea of collaborating within community. If you know a lot of different nonprofits, organizations, a lot of times they silo themselves and say, we're not going to work together, we're doing our own thing. Creative Reaction Lab really does the opposite of that and thinks about how can we partner with the community and not just other organizations, but people in the community, which a lot of times their voices are never at the table. And so truly I wanted to bring that into my work. And so in many different spaces, we've talked about diversity and equity. And in general, in Creative Action Lab, we do the work. Um, and after my time at Creative Action Lab, I'm really honored and I've really been able to hone in on my true passion, which is youth agency. And so I'm honored to be in this program. I'm really honored to be able to be here with you all. I think 8 months goes by way faster than you think it does. And then you're at the end and you're like, oh, wow, I did all these things. And so not only am I honored to have worked with the Creative Reaction Lab team, I'm really also honored to work with the other Seats of Power fellows, Ugochi and Michelle. Both of them have really been instrumental in my growth. And one thing that I really appreciate about this internship and fellowship is that we were always in community with each other. We made sure to always check on each other. And that is something that our entire team has done together. So that's part of my story, and I'm super excited to have this be one of the many chapters of my life. And so I can talk a little bit about my project. The video will probably do a much better job, but my project, I really, as I said, honed in on youth agency during this time. I created a website called Our Story because I saw the gap in how students are not knowledgeable about their ancestors and what they have done. A lot of times in higher education, we see student activism repeat itself. And so oftentimes I wanted to bring to them like, oh, this has happened before. See what's going on. This has already happened in your past. And let's work off that rather than replicate or rather respin the wheel, basically. And so I wanted really students to find comfort in how the people before them were able to approach advocacy for similar causes. Um, Also, as I've spoken a little bit during my master's thesis, I had focused on student activism through the college years. And so I really wanted to build off this. So if you see my other website, I have one called Our Story and then another one it's called like Our Voice. And so I think we'll make an R series of where we're just really thinking about ourselves as a community through those different avenues. And so we can go ahead and share my video. Hi, my name is Amos Jaimes, and I'm a Seeds of Power Fellow for the 2023-2024 cycle. So for this past cycle, I've been really focusing on student voice and their agency and amplifying their voice through history of student activism, as well as creating an interactive platform that also pulls in resources for schools. So the purpose of my fellowship project these past couple months is to better understand student agency and create a space for students to understand what their ancestors have conducted in moments of student activism, especially in their local areas. Right now, a lot of my focus has been the Kansas City area, but I am looking to expand and do have a blog post up for different areas as well. My timeline and execution of my project has been three-pronged so far. First, I've created a robust website to host my materials that I've created. I've gained feedback from the CRX Lab staff, and I'm looking to gain feedback from local instructors. And then I plan to periodically update my interactive offerings on my website. A really big portion of my website and my research and my project in general is to make sure it's interactive and engaging to the audience and isn't just something that they visit one time and don't go back to it. So first, we're going to focus on some of the youth resources that I have created and that I'm still creating. So our story platform, once again, focuses on engaging youth through an interactive platform. Right now, I'm currently in the stages of creating a video game. I'm testing it, and I'm creating a video game that takes a student through a story of a moment of student activism, specifically in Kansas City. And so they'll play as a main character and be able to experience that and make decisions in order to be able to progress the story further, as well as learning from that experience in a different method than reading a blog. So I also do have blog posts up as well. I have 2 right now. And those are also a different way for our students to engage with the platform and to learn about activism in their area. So this is that website, and I will be taking you through it. So our story, our logo is right here. It is focused on going back in time to look at some of those histories and moments of power for our students. And so our blog is also right here. Our blog is this tab right here. And right now we have a post up about the 1968 Chicano Power Movement and the 1968 student-led protests. There's a theme right now in 1968 with a lot of youth activism. And so these were in Kansas City and these were in the California area. And so both of these are just quick summaries of what occurred, as well as offering resources. And then it goes into a video. So I made sure to include videos and everything that I produced, ones that are usually made from the community. But the reasoning behind it is because it allows for people to be able to learn in multiple different ways than just reading. So some of the school resources I created are based off Missouri Standards Alignment. Since we are in Missouri right now, and that's where we're based in, it really falls under these tools of social and science inquiry, really being able to allow students to examine history and the origins and impacts of social structures and some of those relationships between people. The reason we looked into these is to make sure that if a teacher did want to use these resources, this isn't the primary purpose of the website. It's really more student driven. But if a teacher did want to use these resources, they would be able to follow these standards. And so I currently have a lesson plan package available if a teacher is interested, which is a content post, a lesson plan, and a slide deck. And I can go back and show you some of that in a second as well. So here you'll find our resources page. This is our For Youth section, and in the classroom, if they want to access lesson plans, it takes them to a different section. And right now it has our 1968 Kansas City race riots. They'll be prompted to have a lesson plan and a slide deck. As I mentioned, this is not the primary purpose of our website, but rather it's an option if a teacher is interested. And with that, I'm going to close out my presentation. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask. I know this is a recorded presentation, but always giving space for questions as well at the end. Thank you.
Well, what a comprehensive, I'm so excited about where that project is going. Obviously, what you've done so far has been is incredible, such a rich resource for youth, for educators, and I can just tell how much of yourself you poured into this project. And I like the Easter eggs that you dropped about things to come. Yes, Michelle mentioning the gamification that's coming. Really, really appreciate that. And if anyone has specific questions about Amos's project, I have a few minutes tied in a few minutes where you'll be able to ask those questions. But thank you so much for your thoughtfulness in presenting that, and cannot wait to see where you take it beyond this point. But you should be really proud of what you have so far, and I know that that's going to be such a credit to the education system there in Missouri. So next up, I would like to invite Ugochi, our next Seed the Power Fellow, to talk a little bit about her background, her story, and her project.
Hi, everyone. I love your project, Amos. And I'm just so grateful to have gone through this fellowship with you. Just thanks so much for just being in my corner. And also for everyone at Creative Action Lab. Just thanks so much for supporting me through this transformative fellowship. So yes, hi everyone. My name is Ugochi. My pronouns are she, her. Just a little about me. I am one of the 2023-2024 Seeds of Power Fellow. I am born and raised in Baltimore, East Side, with familial roots in Southeast Nigeria. I have a background in public health, global health, with a specialized focus on social-cultural, social-contextual determinants of health, which is really just the conditions in which people are born, grow, live, work, and age, and how that impacts their health outcomes. And that gave me such a holistic approach to seeing wellness and joy. And so through this fellowship, I was so excited to learn more about how crucial these aspects are in design, specifically public health and design, and how to utilize my skill sets for that. And then just more about what I'm passionate about using art, which is why it was super cool to be able to support A for E. And then just also in storytelling and just research to explore race, identity, culture, and power, and engaging with Black worlding, radical speculation, and Black feminist futurity. Hi, my name is Ugochi Chinemere, and I am one of the 2023-2024 Seeds of Power Fellows. I'm a first-generation Nigerian American, born and raised in the beautiful city of Baltimore. I have an extensive background in public health, and I recently received my Master of Public Health from Emory University in 2021. My story and past experience working with youth aligns with the mission and values of the Creative Reaction Lab. I believe that youth are change makers and crucial leaders in our communities. I recently had the opportunity to work with Baltimore City youth on an ongoing street-level campaign called Speak for Peace, featuring stories from community leaders impacted by and fighting against street violence. And I hope to utilize my passion for working with and training youth leaders to address issues in their own communities. And I hope to learn so much by being a fellow with Creative Reaction Lab. Thank you. So I actually created that digital story in the beginning of my fellowship. So that to express my excitement about the fellowship and why I felt like Creative Reaction Lab was just such a perfect fit for me. And so I love that I'm reusing it for our graduation, like so full circle. But yeah, just Creative Reaction Lab aligns with my passions, values, and what drives me every day. Community, innovation, creativity, and justice. It's a place where young people have a voice and a role in shaping these vital areas. So being in community with young creatives inspired my work and led me to develop my project, which is Creative Futures. And then through this project, I aim to explore and amplify the stories of young Black and Latinx artists to learn and foster a future rooted in healing, equity, and justice. So thank you, Thomas, for sliding my Zoom clip in so quickly. And everyone, I hope you enjoy listening about my project. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ugochi Chinemere, and I am one of the 2023-2024 Seas of Power Fellows with Creative Reaction Lab. And I'm so excited to be able to talk about my SLP project called Creative Futures, which looks at how young Black and Latinx artists navigate the intersection of creativity, identity, and future making. So these are some pictures of myself when I was younger, of my goofy self, with a picture of my family in the corner, and also with some poems that I've written over the past year as I have, as I'm in the process of learning about my own artistry, what it means for me to be an artist. So while I was doing these interviews, many of the artists I was able to connect with shared that art was an intrinsic part of their lives from an early age, and that resonated with me. It was always just there. It always moved me. From writing short stories about Black girlhood, and that allowed me to explore possibilities and envision futures for myself, which then steered me towards sci-fi and fantasy. Um, and then also in my upbringing, it just I was encouraged to question the world around me and be curious, and also guided by the Igbo proverb, if a person has something worthwhile in their hand, they bring it home. So learning about being a redesigner for justice through the Creative Reaction Lab catalyzed this meaning for me. It made me deeply reflect on my own superpower, my communal responsibility, and how I can use my skills, knowledge, tools, for the freedom, liberation, and joy for the communities I belong to and care for. So this journey naturally led me to my SLP project, where I brought these visions and commitments to life. So the image on the slide is the flyer I used and created to recruit Creative Reaction alum. So my project specifically explores the intersection of creativity and identity and how Black and Latinx individuals use creative expression to shape their futures. So I had two specific objectives. One, to explore how creative practices help youth envision their futures. And two, to understand how design challenges dominant societal narratives. So I employed a narrative inquiry approach while conducting 5 in-depth interviews with Creative Reaction alum, aged 23 to 26, who identified as Black or Latinx, and were just actively engaged in creative things. And I also analyzed those creative pieces to gain insights into their future-oriented visions. So the Equity-Centered Community Design Framework is a framework created by Creative Reaction Lab, and ECCD centers the voices, needs, and aspirations of historically excluded communities in every phase of project design and implementation. And it champions inclusivity, shared power, and social justice. So my project, Creative Futures, is firmly rooted in the principles of ECCD. So, for example, the concept of history and healing recognizes creativity's historical context and transformative power. Historically excluded communities have long used art and design to document their experiences, resist oppression, and celebrate their identities. In this, by documenting the stories and artistic outputs of young Black and Latinx creatives, we honor these cultural legacies, their resilience, and also contributing to a collective healing process. And also another would be ideating approaches in rapid prototyping, which involve brainstorming justice-oriented solutions and bringing these ideas to life through sketching and storyboarding. And my goal for this project is to design a photo essay as a resource and prototype, which will allow me to visually capture and convey the artists that I was able to interview, their narratives and their stories. And also, I hope this showcases or emphasizes how crucial it is to ground our research and solutions in their lived realities. So by using ECCD to unlearn the limiting narratives imposed on Black and Latinx bodies, my project fostered narrative justice. And Creative Futures aims to amplify the stories and dreams of Black and Latinx artists as they use art to world build and shapeshift. So I know some of y'all might be like, So what does that mean? And how in the world did I do that? So my intention with the project was to explore how creative expression shapes the identities and futures and communities of young Black and Latinx individuals. And I aim to uncover the ways in which creativity serves as a tool for coping, self-discovery, and social impact. Um, and through the narratives and reflections, I found that creative expression provided these artists with a powerful means of navigating their personal challenges, expressing their identities, and envisioning their futures. So I hope that my project highlights the creativity and the resilience of young Black and Latinx creatives as they challenge dominant narratives and foster social change. These are some lovely photos by the talented artists I had the privilege of interviewing. Don't they look just stunning? So I want to thank each of them for being vulnerable and open in the conversations that we had. They were so inspiring. So the interview questions were designed to um, elicit insights into the artist's background, creative practices, motivations, and aspirations. So the themes that I had pulled out was therapeutic and transformative power of creative expression, challenging dominant narratives with critical consciousness and aspirations and future goals. And some of the quotes that aligned with this that I really liked was creative expression provided me with a therapeutic outlet for self-exploration and vulnerability. Um, Painting became a subconscious process for dealing with emotions and memories. My aspirations focus on continuing my art practice as a form of self-expression and healing. So these narratives underscore the importance of creative expression for young artists of color as it provides a vital outlet for self-exploration and emotional healing. It empowers them to challenge dominant narrative and assert their identities, fostering a sense of control and representation. And additionally, it highlights the potential for these artists to build fulfilling careers and positively impact their communities while continuing to grow personally and professionally. But I also found several nuances and things that interested me or surprised me. So, for example, the importance of surrealism and imagination in the conversations I had with artists. They discussed using imagination and surrealism as ways they challenge traditional narratives, explore their identity, and try to make sense of the world around them or the future of it. And also the role of social media. Social media was a reoccurring theme influencing how the artists perceive themselves in their art. One artist discussed the impact of social media on their motivation and self-comparison, while another highlighted the nostalgic elements in their art that resonated with her online audience. And a quote that is attached to that said, social media has always made me look at what other people were doing and think, oh, I'm not doing that. And I think that has had a huge impact on how I see myself as an artist and as a person in general. Another thing that interested me was this aspect of dreams and abstract thought. They played a significant role in the creative processes for artists. One artist frequently incorporated elements from her dreams into her paintings, using them as a source of inspiration and memory preservation. And this person said, I like painting things that I dream about. I kind of remember that instead of, how some people will write about it, painting is another way to remember that and just have that there. So this all really excited me, and all the theme underscores the potential for future research for me to delve deeper into how such abstract and cultural significant concepts influence creative expression and community impact. So for next steps to complete the photo essay, that's a big one. So currently in the process of designing an immersive photo essay that will include the personal stories and narratives of the artists that I was able to talk to, and also dive deeper into their artworks that we were able to discuss more about, and I'll be able to reflect on them too. And just incorporating different types of immersive elements to to create an experience that aligns with the stories that the artists were sharing. And then even further than this project, I also identified areas for future research, such as the impact of social media on the creative community. So understanding how these technologies shape creative journeys and outputs can provide deeper insights into the evolving landscape of creativity and the themes of surrealism, imagination, abstract thoughts, and the role of social media are tied to technology, Afrofuturism, and creativity. And I want to explore more of that. The type of research I want to pursue involves a combination of participatory, qualitative, interdisciplinary approaches to have a better understanding of creative practices. So by continuing to explore these themes, I hope to contribute to the broader discourse on creativity, technology, and social justice, ultimately fostering a more inclusive and supportive environment for young creatives in a more equitable future. And with that, at Creative Action Lab, I feel like we always end with a call to action. So amplify the voices of young artists. I hope you all are able to immerse yourself in the radical hope and vision our youth are building, because they are here and they are doing it. So thank you.
Well, I can hear the round of applause from here, even though it is muted. Such a another well thought out vision. The amount of thought, I love the concept of narrative justice, and for you and Amos to be able to see from ideation to where you all have come in such a short period of time is really outstanding. These are really provoking, provocative works that can really shift some things for some folks. And thank you for ending with that call to action. So, in thinking about what's next, and some of the foundation that our graduating fellows have helped us to lay, we'll be looking for our next fellow cohort. Our application opens on July 1st for this next cohort. We are a never-ending kind of workflow here, and so we're already looking for who else that we can bring on to help produce the type of impact that Amos and Ugochi have and that they will continue to do. We asked, if you're on this call, spread the word. We pay our fellows for the work, and Amos and Ugochi, you all are now ambassadors for this work. So as folks come to you for advice about whether this is a right move for them, give them your candid responses. A shift that I want to point out for this upcoming fellowship cohort is that we are specifically looking for fellows in the Chicago or St. Louis area so that we can help to expand that work. Michelle, I know that you're on the call currently, so if you know of any contacts that fellowship would be good for, or any of you on the call, we are looking to have some more boots on the ground specifically in those areas. But beyond that, it's pretty wide open to anyone between the years of 18 to 26 years old, and preferably who identify as Black or Latinx. Feel free to grab some swag for any guests who are on the call. They make great gifts. Holiday season is but a few months away, and at the rate this year is going, it'll be here tomorrow. So feel free to grab some swag from our online store. Really excited to, in a more celebratory way, and again, Amos and Ugochi, invitation wide open for you to be a part of this event next summer. It is the Designing Equity Festival, a great opportunity to dig into some of that intersectionality that Ugochi really referenced with her project about how creativity merges with diversity, design, equity, but then also with different sectors of business and nonprofit world, and really investigating, the real, how does equity actually show up regardless of what walk of life you're coming from. The sales for that event are happening now. I'm sure that we will be sharing out this information with you all after the fact. So again, folks who you have encountered through your work with us and who you will continue to encounter after this, feel free to drive their attention towards this event as well. The more the merrier. We have micro courses available. So if you know folks in your life are interested in pushing their thinking about equity, those are all through our website. We call that the Redesigners in Action micro course series. This is, the first of many of our steps into the e-learning space, but these are always on the website, always available to you. And for our graduating fellows, I'm sure there is some sort of discount we can work out if you're interested in diving into any of these more that you did not watch throughout the course of your fellowship. Obviously, we're always looking to collaborate with partners, either for lectures, professional development, really consulting, collaborating. We'll make sure to fill up AC schedule even more if need be to get her out around the country. Photos to be updated. They're still serving. It's fine. We love them. They're great. But yeah, as part of your advocacy work, just let your contacts know that even if they don't know where to start, but they want to integrate equity into their business, into their lives, we're here as a resource. We're a thought partner in that regard. I said we'd come back to it, our Power Shifters Club. For anyone on the call, if you're interested in more intentionally contributing financially to the Seeds of Power Fellowship, the Power Shifters Club is the most direct way to do that. It comes with a number of benefits, getting updates from our fellows about their experience so that you can see immediately the impact that your donation has, branded merchandise, and then also a discount to our Creative Reaction online store. Cannot hype up the Power Shifters Club enough. There's also a pretty cool sticker that I saw somewhere that I'm sure you will be getting, but it's a nice perk as well. And then finally, we're right on time. I want to say again, heartfelt thank you so much to our graduating fellows, for the other members of the Creative Reaction Lab team on the call. This is an all hands on deck approach. Everybody in this call has supported the work of our fellows, has been open to supporting that process. And I think that this program so far speaks to me the most clearly about the power of this program, the concept of power shifting. And I think there's no greater evidence than what Ugochi and Amos were able to do with this framework, to take it and really extend it into ways that I've never seen, I didn't even know were possible. And so from me to you two, on behalf of the team, thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.